Getting to Formula 1 is expensive, and is why we've seen so many paid drivers from the early days of F1 right through to the modern day. But what happens when you don't have a billionaire father or massive sponsorship? This is the story of the crowd-funded F1 driver. Justin Wilson was born in Rotherham in 1978. His father raced himself but had to stop due to an injury a few years before Justin was born. He started karting at the age of 8 and achieved moderate success and progressed to car racing at the age of 16 in 1994. And after a few years in cars, he graduated to International Formula 3000, and former F1 driver Jonathan Palmer became his manager. He finished 20th in the series in 1999, but improved to 5th in 2000, taking 2 podium finishes along the way. In 2001, Wilson dominated, taking 3 wins and winning the championship by a record 32 points over Mark Webber. He tested for the Jordan F1 team in 2001, but didn't get the seat for financial reasons. He also spoke to Minardi about a seat for 2002 and even considered going to kart, but ultimately ended up racing in World Series by Nissan, finishing 4th in the standings. During the 2002 F1 season, Minardi dropped Alex Young for 2 races because they weren't happy with his performance. They chose Justin Wilson to replace him, but when he went for a seat fit, he couldn't fit in the car, and Anthony Davidson got the seat instead. Later in the year, he spoke to Minardi owner Paul Stoddart about racing for the team in 2003. He was offered the seat as long as he could come up with £2 million in sponsorship. To raise the funds, Wilson's manager Palmer looked for companies to sponsor him, and his family remortgaged their home and gave him the money from that. This, however, wasn't enough, so Palmer spent the early months of 2003 meeting with lawyers to devise a strategy to allow people to invest in Wilson's career. They came up with Justin Wilson plc, which was floated on the London Stock Exchange on the 5th of March 2003. At the time, Palmer was quoted as saying, "The Minardi team has been well aware of the calibre of Wilson and wanted him as a driver for 2003, though requiring to find a small proportion of their required budget. Most drivers who move into F1 bring some sponsorship with them in their early days, and in the tough international economic climate of today, this is hard to find. There was an alternative source of funds. Everyone knows F1 drivers earn huge amounts of money if and when they are successful. Justin had no hesitation in being prepared to commit to paying a handsome return to anyone who would take the risk of investing to launch his F1 career. It was important, though, to set up a proper formal structure for this concept, which would enable many to take advantage of this opportunity, from fans to major corporate investors. The result is Justin Wilson plc. So what's the deal? Well, it is fully set out in the prospectus, but essentially you can invest anything from just £500. Subject to Justin's success, your return may double your money. But once this is achieved, investors will also be entitled effectively to 10% of Justin Wilson's income until 2012. Justin recognises that investors will appreciate early accrual of their spoils, so he will be limited to a modest income by F1 standards until investors have achieved this. Essentially, there were 2 stages. The first was for the investors to double their money. This would be paid after 3 years and sufficient funds had accrued in Justin Wilson plc. Then investors would collectively be paid 10% of Wilson's earnings until December 2012. Investors could invest anything over £500, and the aim was to raise £1.2 million. The deadline was the 30th of May, and the shares were oversubscribed when the deadline was closed. Over 900 people invested in Justin Wilson plc, with 70% owning £500 worth, 20% having £1,000 worth, and the rest owning over £1,000 worth of shares. Speaking at the time, Wilson said, "I'm delighted and flattered that so many people have chosen to invest in my career. The response to the share offer and the publicity it's generated has been really amazing, not only here in the UK but around the world. I get asked a lot if it's added pressure knowing that people have invested their hard-earned money into Justin Wilson plc, but as I keep saying, I view the investors as additional support and not additional pressure." And Minardi team owner Paul Stoddart had this to say: "When Jonathan Palmer came to me with Justin Wilson plc proposal in December of last year, I embraced it with enormous enthusiasm, as I thought it to be the best idea Formula 1 had seen in many a long year. With a driver of Justin's impeccable pedigree and undoubted talent, I felt the Invest in Wilson scheme could be nothing but a runaway success. I am therefore so very pleased that it has been just that. and that the share offering is now fully subscribed. In the 2003 F1 season, Wilson impressed in the uncompetitive Minardi, and after the British Grand Prix, the 11th round of the 2003 season, Jaguar signed him to replace Antonio Pizzonia for the rest of the season. He was slower than his teammate Webber in all the races, but improved throughout, even finishing 8th and scoring his first points in Formula 1. Jaguar considered signing him for 2004, but opted for a pay driver instead, so Christian Klein was signed as he was backed by Red Bull. Wilson instead went to Champ Car for 2004, finishing 11th in the standings before 3 successful seasons, coming 3rd, 2nd and 2nd in the final 3 Champ Car seasons. He then joined the newly reunified IndyCar series, finishing a highest of 6th in the standings in 2013, driving for Dale Coyne Racing. He joined Andretti Autosport for 7 races in 2015, however tragically during the 2015 ABC Supply 500 at Pocono, Sage Karam lost it in turn 1 and his nose cone came off after hitting the wall. It bounced along the track and struck Wilson's helmet. The next day he was pronounced dead at the age of 37. It was a tragic end to the career of Justin Wilson, which had been kick-started by an unusual way of raising funds.